Coming up, customs and immigration officers pull up stakes today and demanded their concerns be addressed. Officers the country over refusing to go to work today. Our cameras are in the middle of all the action. 3 murders in the span of hours, the murder count pushed to 115. Is Anya Wilmot missing, or is she a fugitive of justice? And if you go into a store and purchase an item, do you know your consumer rights? You want to stay tuned in for this story. It's all straight ahead this Friday, November 25th, on the Bahamas Tonight, starting right now.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
This is the Bahamas Tonight National Report. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Shanique Miller. A wildcat strike today that could have put the country's revenues in jeopardy. It's the big story tonight. Custom and immigration officers carried out a nationwide strike, causing management to have to scramble to fill critical areas at the nation's port of entry, LPIA, and the Prince George Dock. The Bahamas Customs, Immigration and Allied Workers Union say their members have had to tolerate poor working conditions and unsafe practices for far too long and will not return to their posts until those matters are resolved. We begin with that strike at Customs today.
Because leadership shows us that we're working for a country that don't care for us.
7:30 Friday morning, Customs officers took to the parking lot of their Thompson Boulevard headquarters, unrelenting in their position that management and government address concerns that have been allowed to linger, topping their grievances, health and safety. According to Cordero Edgecombe, parking space has been stripped from those who work at Prince George Wharf, and the officers must now park as far away as the General Post Office on East Hill Street.
The government is apparently doing some new construction at the harbor, and so the area that the officers would have parked in is no longer available. So the department's decision is for officers to park up at the post office and walk down to the harbor, which seems reasonable to most persons, but when you think of our shift system, which they forced us into illegally again, they have officers that report to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? They have officers that report to work 10 o'clock at night that have to be walking from the post office, and we all know what safety issues that face.
Now here's where members laid out their health claims. They say the Arawaki station is riddled with dust and mold, causing members to become sick. Winifred Linden, a shop steward who works from Arawaki, describes conditions at the port.
The officers, they are so committed. They will be there sick and they will be coughing and sneezing and they will still not go home because they devoted to their jobs. So most of the times, Arawaki staff don't even call in sick. We just walk around with tissues all day.
Recently, Customs introduced a shift system. It cut out the exorbitant overtime pay they once made. Well, Alma Wims, who works out of the Odyssey International Airport, says a small salary of $2,600 a month isn't sufficient considering her weekly $70 fuel tab.
The powers that be has come in and they have changed all the rules. And one thing the management and Customs is now trying to do is force us to work a shift system within a shift system.
Later in the day, the group at Customs was joined by members of the opposition who could be seen talking with the officers. The BCIAWU also wants the reclassification of Customs guards addressed. The issue there is guards who are now officers aren't enjoying the salary or benefits as regular officers. Comptroller Glenn Gomez says he's been petitioning the public service.
Last year, the government put a freeze, a moratorium on any promotion. So although we had recommended these clerical people, there was nothing that could be done. When the freeze was listed this budget year, we set about pushing that again. So that was again sent over and asked for attention to be given.
Now, as for Arawaki and reports of mold in the building, Gomez says he's awaiting a report from engineers who are conducting analysis to determine if it is indeed mold in the building. Also on the matter of overtime, Gomez says if an officer is asked to work extra hours, well, they're paid the overtime. Over at Hawkins Hill, immigration officers took to the front steps of their building with similar occurrences in Grand Bahama and the Family Islands. Immigration officers and clerical staff are also represented by the Bahamas Customs, Immigration and Allied Workers Union. They shared many of the same concerns as their counterparts in customs, one of health and safety. Now, on that front, immigration officers say it's unfair that clerical staff who are exposed to the same diseases as frontline staff are denied health and other benefits. Our news team spoke with Union Vice President Sloan Smith.
In 2007, the uniform officers received health insurance. Mass discrimination has occurred because we have officers here, non-uniformed, who should have gotten the same coverage. They're exposed to the same environment as we are. We have officers who work alongside of persons, the migrants coming on board vessels, and they come into this environment. We have persons who we know we have not caught, who have filtered into the community. Their documents they present to us, our officers receive them at the counters, and guess what? We don't know what type of diseases are being transferred.
Another family in the capital in mourning tonight. It's all a familiar story and too familiar these days. This latest murder, the result of a domestic dispute in the Soldier Road area. Many feel the gun amnesty period and National Day of Prayer had no real impact on lessening the murder rate, which now stands at 115. Fern Carey takes a look.
Police were called to a home on Hibiscus Lane and Butterfly Close off Soldier Road Thursday night, shortly after a quarrel involving two men and a woman spiraled out of control. The tragedy reportedly unfolded sometime after 8 p.m.
The victim, who was in his early 50s, was visiting a female friend of his when another male came by, got into altercation with the female friend. The victim intervened to separate them, and he was fatally stabbed in the chest.
A hearse soon arrived to remove the victim's body, which lay in the street covered by a white sheet. Due to an intense investigation by police and tips from the public, a 56-year-old man was taken into custody moments later in connection with the incident. The circumstances surrounding this latest homicide prompting Superintendent Dean to make this appeal.
We have to find ways, find methods to resolve disputes among us. The knife, stabbing, that is not the answer. We can resolve our conflicts, and sometimes we have to take our losses, and we have to develop win-win situations.
Now, because the investigation is still in its early stages, police have not released the victim's identity. Fern Carey, ZNS News.
There was another murder last night which took the country's homicide count to 115. Now police say they have 4 people in custody, including one shot by police for that murder, which happened just after midnight in the McCullough Corner area just off East Street. According to police, the victim, believed to be in his mid-30s, received a fatal shot to the body. Superintendent Stephen Dean.
Shortly after 12 last night, a young man in his mid-30s, he was shot in the McCullough Corner area. As a result of information received and police officers who were on the alert, they were able to intercept a vehicle with 4 men inside, 4 suspects. Police conducted a search of that vehicle, and we were able to find a high-powered weapon.
Now, according to Dean, one of the 4 suspects tried to escape after being arrested and was subsequently shot by police. However, his injuries are not life-threatening. Police also telling us more about that shooting incident off Florida Court earlier this week, which left 2 men, ages 15 and 21, in hospital. Police tell us that the 21-year-old, identified as Kingsley Newbold of East Street, died around 2:30 yesterday afternoon. The 15-year-old remains in hospital in stable condition. Police are questioning a 23-year-old man of Hard Rock Alley in connection with the incident. Meantime, police are still trying to locate 22-year-old Anya Wilmot, who has been missing since Tuesday. Wilmot was to appear in court this week in a firearms and drug case, but she never showed up. Dean says police are treating the matter as priority.
We are following all lines of inquiries. It is being treated as a missing person report, and we have taken all the steps that we take in any missing person report. This case is of major concern to us. We want to find her. We want to see where she is at this time. Anyone who might have information on where she might be, we are asking you to please contact the police, as small as the information might be. If you know she has left the country, we need to know that.
This Thanksgiving holiday weekend turning deadly for a Texas man visiting the Bahamas. The 47-year-old man reportedly drowned yesterday. Police tell us that just before 1 yesterday afternoon, the victim was riding a jet ski along with another family member on Cabbage Beach, Paradise Island, when the jet ski overturned. The victim, a resident of Dallas, was taken to hospital where he was pronounced dead. Investigations continue. Well, squatters, take note. The land you occupy is being sought by government. This includes all foreigners living on land they do not own, and Bahamian squatters are not exempt either. Ianthea Smith tells us more about this new trust.
The houses are beautifully built, some small and quaint, some larger in size, some for rent, and some in the process of expanding. But government officials say many of the homes in the Fire Trail area are illegally built on Crown land, and the Prime Minister says they're taking them back from illegal and Bahamian squatters.
Like Mackey Yard, other parcels of government-owned land in this area have been occupied by Bahamians and non-Bahamians. We are systematically moving to reclaim these publicly owned land.
On Thursday, Housing Minister Kenneth Russell and Parliamentary Secretary Brendel Roll took the media on a tour of the Government Yard, Margaret Yard, and Suwash subdivisions, where hundreds of homes and even this Rastafarian camp are illegally built. Roll says about 30 homes have already been demolished, adding that it's going to take about $6 million to transform these into subdivisions for qualified Bahamians.
Some of the beautiful houses constructed by Bahamians, occupied by Bahamians on government land, squatting just like the Haitians did on this site.
The funny thing is, though, Prime Minister Ingram says he finds it quite odd that these illegally built homes are fully equipped with services from BEC, BTC, and the Water and Sewerage Corporation.
We've had to undertake massive exercises here in New Providence, especially in the Carmichael Road area, in Abaco, in Andros, and North Eleuthera, and in other parts of the Bahamas, like Grand Bahama, to make title available to families, some of whom have been an unauthorized occupation of government-owned land and developed commercial enterprises on the land. Others constructed houses on the land, and in some cases, families have been residing and continue to reside on government-owned land without proper authorization for generations.
Construction has already started, and officials say some homes will be completed within 3 to 4 months. Ianthea Smith, ZNS News.
Are you confused about the prices you find on an item? Perhaps it's registering two prices. Well, we talk to Consumer Affairs about how you handle that. That story when the Bahamas Tonight Friday continues.